Today we're taking a look at the patch notes for patch 7.4, which is the release patch of Baba Yaga, Witch of the Woods. And we're gonna start looking at Baba Yaga herself right away. Her passive is Creeping Cabin, which means she has her cabin as her pet walking around with her. The pet doesn't really attack or do anything of that sort, but what it will do is it will gather stacks. It will gather essence. And this essence can either be used to heal you. If you don't have any specific items, then this will just heal you if you lose health. And if you have any stacking items, then this will actually gradually stack the item for you. And depending on which items is, a stack will take more of the essence or less. So you can get any stacking item. You can get like Warlock Staff, you can get Sharon's Coin, you can get Hide of the Urchin. You can all stack them, but they all kind of stack at different speeds. So Warlock Staff would stack quicker because it has more stacks, and the others would stack slower. But still, it will drastically increase the speed at which you stack things. And this essence gain is increased when the cabin is close to enemies, but at the same time she can't get too close to them because otherwise the cabin will just run away. And it says also here, if Baba Yaga has no stacking item, this essence heals Baba Yaga for 0.8% of her max health per tick. And you can get 100 essence. I don't think it's 80% of her HP though. No, it says heal cost 4. So it would be 20% roughly, I think. And the item stack cost here is 400 per item max stack. So they kind of max out around the same time, but still I think this is very effective for certain items that you normally get stacks through kills and assists, especially like Hide of the Urchin. I think that's going to be very effective there. And the first ability is Wild Witchcraft. In this ability she throws forward just a magical spell basically, and that spell can travel in a random shape. It's called left corner, right corner, split, or oval here. And essentially, what it looks like, it's either like the Tetris shapes are the left and right corner, basically, or like an L. So it goes straight and then to the left or to the right. And the split, it goes straight and then splits like a Y shape overall, like a line and then a V, whichever. And the oval is just going around in a circle, not from both sides. Sorry. And at the same time, it has a random magical field on the ground where it hits. And this field will have additional effects. So you have the damage here of 75 to 275, plus 75% scaling. And you get either 15 to 35 protections for 1 second. If you're on the trail of this ability, you can get 20 to 30% movement speed. You can have a 20 to 30% slow for enemies, and the last one is actually not listed here. Oh, it's a silence. Okay, so it doesn't. So I'm assuming it for 1 second as well, because they all are for 1 second. Very short duration, not necessarily all super noticeable, but I don't know how long the trail actually stays around. It says here 4 seconds, right? So this can be quite impactful if you walk exactly on the line, then you will get the effect for 4 seconds. And that's like, with the movement speed, for example, it's kind of similar to Habua's scroll. The thing that you have to keep in mind is that the enemy will know exactly where you are walking because the line is smaller than the scroll, so you don't have as much wiggle room to walk around, so it's very easy for them to confirm abilities on you while you're on that. Costs here 70 to 90 mana and cooldown 12 seconds, so relatively short. I looked at this damage value, and it's actually the same as Discordia's one without the bouncing out effect. So, yeah, that gives you a good idea of how it will feel damage-wise. And it's very unexpected in how it will hit due to the direction, the angles. You'll have to look at the other video that I posted about this, where you can actually see it in-game. You can see it much, much better there and understand it much better. Baba's Brew. Baba Yaga throws together random ingredients to brew a potion. Each Eye of Newt increases the potion's damage by 7.5. Each Dragon Scale adds a 12.5% slow to enemies for 2.5 seconds. And each Wolf Tooth adds 7.5% attack speed slow and power reduction to enemies hit for 5 seconds. Baba Yaga can store a single potion in a consumable slot, refiring and cancelling the ability. She can pull it out at any time to throw it. So you'll see that when she summons the potion, or when she brews the potion shows up next to her, and it'll have the icons of these three things, of the Eye of Newt, of the Dragon Scale, and the Wolf Tooth. And it'll have a different variation of those depending on which potion you're getting. So you could, for example, have 3 Eye of Newt and 2 Dragon Scales. And then you know what kind of effect the potion will have. If you use a high damage potion, a high slow potion, or just an attack speed and power reduction one. And the base damage here is 55 to 215 plus 60% scaling. Also almost the same as Discordia's 2, just as a frame for reference. But that's before adding any extra damage, which you can get through the Eye of Newt potion. And the ingredient count here increases over time. So if you level the ability up, it goes from 3 to 4 to 5 eventually. Mana cost goes from 60 to 80, and the cooldown goes from 16 to 14 seconds. So it's multiple benefits in leveling this. You get more ingredients and you get a lower cooldown. Could arguably be leveled above the one if you were not having any issues with clearing at all, but the one I think is the easier one to use for clearing because it's more somewhat of a line ability in most cases, whereas Baba's Brew is just a small circle one. And I think this will be very interesting, especially the storing effect is also very interesting, so you can have 2 different potions that you can throw right after each other for a lot of very quick damage. Third ability is Blast Off. Baba Yaga crawls inside her mortar for protection, so the mortar gets like flipped around and she is hidden under it. While inside the mortar, she gains damage reduction, knock-up protection, and begins to build up explosive magic. That means every other CC will still CC her and completely interrupt this skill, so that's important. After 1 second, the magic explodes, launching Baba Yaga and her mortar in the direction she is facing. Enemies near the mortar, when it explodes, take damage. So when you go into the mortar, you have 1 second of wind up and you can run towards the enemy to get the damage on them. But from what I can tell here, it doesn't actually increase your movement speed or anything. So the enemy can also just run away from you while you're doing that. And that might be the smart move. Or they can disrupt the ability by CCing you in any way that's not a knock up or knock back. And then the damage here is 80 to 260 plus 85% of your magical power once the thing explodes. So after 1 second. And that's when you get launched. So it's basically a leap afterwards in whichever direction you're facing. So you can run to an enemy, turn around your camera, and leap back to the original place you started from, roughly. So that's very, very cool. And the damage reduction is 25 to 35%, relatively high. So yeah, you're not getting super punished for going in like this. Cost is 60 to 80, and cooldown is 16 seconds. What I think is worth noting here is that this ability, while being an escape, also has a decent amount of damage, a lot of base damage, and especially high scaling. And I think that's crucial to know that, like I compared the first 2 abilities to Discordia, and at times at least the 2 already has more damage than Discordia, though Discordia can have more damage with a 1. But she can throw the 2 twice, and she has the third ability dealing damage as well, and that's how you can see, like, she's not a CC guard. She has these random bonus effects, but a lot of her kit is really about high damage, and that's what we're seeing when you include the fact that she has another high damaging ability here in her escape, and she can use that aggressively as well, which is why I think it will be very interesting to see what happens if she builds like Hide of the Urchin, because she can stack that so easily and just goes full aggressive bruiser-ish style. So I think that's what Horus is trying to push her towards, like especially building Warlock Staff as well. And that's going to be interesting. And then we have the ultimate, also a very big deal here, Home Sweet Home. Baba Yaga calls on her cabin, causing it to crash onto her and launch nearby enemies away. So it drops right on top of her, which is, I guess, in a way also an escape mechanic, especially against guards that have hard CC when it would interrupt her 3. Baba Yaga commands the cabin for up to 8 seconds, using it as a protective shield to create and throw 4 Witchfire bolts from the inside. When the thrown Witchfire lands, it explodes, dealing damage to enemies in the area while leaving behind a creeping patch of fire that chases nearby enemies. Enemies caught in the creeping fire take burn damage every 0.4 seconds. So, first thing that happens is it crashes down. It deals the landing damage here, which is 100 to 280, plus 50% of your magical power scaling. And then she fires the bolts. So she's in the cabin, she gets a shield, a health shield of 100 to 420. And I think she also gets CC immunity while she's in the cabin. They mentioned something about damage reduction on the patch notes, but I think they must have just meant there was shield here and not actual damage reduction, because it's mentioned nowhere any else. And then when she's in the cabin, when she's walking around the cabin, she fires these fire projectiles that are basically rings of fire on the ground afterwards and travel forward but towards enemies. Similar to Novakovic, only that they're actually targeting the enemy. And then you have this burst damage from the fire, which is 60 to 160 plus 30% scaling, which I'm not sure it will happen if it just creeps to you. I think it has to land on you right away, and not the creeping patch, but I'm not sure. It doesn't say anything about that here. And then the creeping fire itself deals 12 to 32 damage, depending on the rank, plus 7.5% scaling. But every 0.4 seconds, so this is quite... well, the racking up quite quickly if you stay in the fire, especially if multiple fires come towards you. I'm not sure how they stack together as well. I think they actually would tick individually. If they do, that could be a lot of damage, especially if you're locked down anyway. So I think this will be a lot of damage overall as well, considering that 2 of these projectiles roughly are equal, if not higher, to many abilities in terms of damage. And you don't really even rely on scaling. The base damage is super high, so that's going to be interesting. So very high damage, and I think she might feel very strong. But what I will say with her is that from what I've seen so far, her kit is very unique and complex, because it has such high randomness to it, which is going to make it very interesting. Like, if the numbers in themselves feel overtuned, then it might not even be necessary to worry about the randomness, because you'll just do the first part of this ability, just the line damage will be enough, and you just throw any Baba's Brew at the enemy because the damage will be enough. And then maybe you don't have to care about all the extra effects, but if the damage numbers turn out not to burst someone down immediately, then you have to start toying around with using these abilities in more effective ways. And at that point, we'll not see her overperform at the start, but then she definitely has a lot of potential to be stronger later, based on the fact that people will learn to control these random effects better and play around them. So very, very interesting. I'm very excited, and can't wait to try it out on Friday. And then we have new skins. I'm literally just going to show them really quick, because you can watch the Patch Notes live viewing if you want to see a little bit more about them, even though they didn't show them that much. We have Aesir Mulan, Norse Mulan skin, Rocky Road Hub. Oh yeah, this is a Grim Omens event. Rocky Road Hub as well, Grim Omens. Syndicate Daji, also Grim Omens. Valkyrie Bride Thor is in the viewer store, but you don't have to buy it. You just have to get enough viewer points throughout the season, and then you will unlock it. Shadow Speaker Hell is in the Shadow Spirit chest, and then we have Yemoja's recolor here, as well as the Yemoja recolor that you get for the season pass, skins pass thingo, her gold skin, and Kitty Cafe Artemis, I think, is an unlock in the Grim Omens events. So yeah, those are all Grim Omens mostly, and some outliers here. And yeah, we'll have some bonus update content, more info coming soon. Interesting. I don't think we have heard about this yet then. But yeah, the other ones are all on the April 21st release schedule here. We have some Project Olympus things that are already live. Clans have been disabled to increase performance during the current situation, because the server load is much higher, and certain queue times have been adjusted slightly, so the queues don't pop at the same time. So there's a little less strain on the servers. And for esports and live streams, you have progress tracking and a notification for the weekly reset now, so you know better when you're actually getting the points and everything. And votes and points from other sources will still remain unaffected by the cap. And we have more changes for Project Olympus coming up as well. We have improved anti-toxicity measures. Customer support will respond differently to hate speech and real-life threats. So first-time offenders will get a 7-day ban, and that used to be 3 days instead. And you can even get immediately banned without warning if whatever you wrote is especially bad. And repeat offenders, so after this first 7-day suspension, the next one will get you an immediate ban if it's for these specific things. And automatic detection and punishment points are changed, or like the detection is improved for AFKing, and for intentional feeding. Especially intentional feeding needed some improvements, I think. I've seen so many cases where I had teammates that just did poorly in a game and that had a label for intentional feeding. So I'm glad that's a little bit adjusted. The Learn tab videos are revised, streamlined the instructional videos with an entirely new set, and new categories are Introduction, Game Modes, Beginner Guide, Breakdown, and Community. I know that this is based on how Paladins improved theirs. They somehow got in other content creators to work with them on that. I don't think SMITE did that so far. I don't know if they're still planning on doing it. I haven't heard anything. And user interface updated the lighting settings in guard screens, auto lobby, blah, blah, blah. Especially more areas like battle pass screens. This should make 3D guard models look more like they do in-game. Well, that makes sense so you know what you're buying. And percentage penetration to stats to screens in-game. Oh, to the shop as well? Or just the stats? It'd be cool if it was... No, I don't know. It's kind of in the shop, but I know it used to be wonky with what is actually included. But okay, I guess it's just an extra stat so you can see what total percentage penetration you have, even though it may not always be the most helpful stat because they can't include execution, for example. All right, just a bunch of bug fixes here. I think this is just minor ones. Nothing too major in terms of bugs at the moment as far as I'm aware, so we're going to skip over this. And we're just going to get to the next changes. So we are going to have... Okay, the first thing we get is to balance life with a Witch of the Woods. There's some bonus balance as well, I guess it's afterwards. Our most jungle camp timers will now appear on the minimap for all camps at the start of each map. So you know when they spawn the first time. That's nice. And the next thing is the jungle shrine now emits a protective aura around each team's respective speed and backup camp. So there's an aura like just in that bottom area. And this aura is Invader's Curse. Only lasts for 1 minute for the first image of the match. So this is specifically to counter early game speed buff invades. Debuff continuously refreshes on enemies in the area. 30% reduced healing and standard SMITE ability healing reduction applies to all ability and item healing, including potions as well. Then 30% reduced movement speed and 30% reduced attack speed. I think the most important one here is 30% reduced movement speed. For some characters like Hercules, also reduced healing. So if you are trying to invade in early game, you're gonna be in for a hell of a time because you got a bunch of debuffs on you, and it makes a lot of sense for the enemy to just chase after you and kill you, turn on you, get a free early kill, and then continue with their route. So yeah, that's what's going on. Hi-Rez really does not want speed buff invades anymore, and this is how they're doing it, and I think that's gonna put an end to it, pretty sure. And the skybox art has been updated. Yggdrasil is barely clinging to life. Surely it's a sign of something grim. So this is probably for our next god again, for Abyss god, maybe Destroyer god. So we'll hear more about that soon, but that's more lore aspect. Jealous gets a bunch of buffs, nerfs, changes overall. Lighting and shadows are changed. It looks a little bit different, and volume on something. So that's a little bit more of a feels thing. The width of the mid lane up to 10 feet, I think it's 10 units in certain areas, is slightly increased. So some more wiggle room there and some room to do abilities. I thought it was already relatively wide, but apparently some people thought it was still too small. The scaling for lane minion was bugged, and they were not scaling enough, basically every 3 minutes instead of every 1 minute, and that's fixed now. The lane minion kill reward distance is increased from 80 units to 120 units, so it's easier to get an assist on that as well if you're a bit further away and your mage is clearing the wave way too early or something. The XP reward scaling is going up, so you're going to reach levels quicker, and the max HP scaling of archer minions is also increased from 5 to 10 every minute, so they're going to be tankier. And buff camps have increased max HP. The small camps have increased max HP, base HP, sorry. And the red buff has increased base HP as well as increased magical protection, because that's the contested one, so that's a bit more of a room for fighting there, whereas the mana buff and the speed buff have decreased base HP and decreased physical power, physical protection. I don't know why physical power here. This is also meant to mean physical protection. I'm assuming it's also meant to be physical protection, but yeah. Either way, these two should be easier to clear, while the red one should be harder to clear. Phoenix has its base HP increased from 1,750 to 2,000, and the Titan has the magical protection increased from 45 to 60, and the base HP increased from 6,000 to 8,000. In duel, it's also an increase from 6,000 to 7,000. So it'll slow down the entire game, basically, in that regard, because minions are tankier, and buff camps for the most part are tankier, and everything gets more HP, and what you get in return is a little bit more XP to level up a bit quicker, but I don't think that can offset all that. And the Demon King as well, increased max HP scaling from 310 per minute to 340 per minute. That is also going to be noticeable. And in Joust, increased the max health from 1,750 to 2,250, and increased the physical protection from 25 to 45, and increased the magic protection from 25 to 30. So a lot going on here in terms of extra stats for the Demon King as well, so that's not going to be as easy to clear either. I am not entirely sure how to feel about all these changes combined. I will have to test that first, because I know that Joust could still be pretty snowbally, and this might be taken out, but I also feel like some games might be a little more draggy now and a little more, base camping again. So we'll see. Hand of the Gods. Increased damage from 150 to 170. This is so that it instantly clears the smalls on the side if you use Hand of the Gods, and with with Assassin's Blessing, the bonus is also more increased. So that's going to be interesting for some. Overall, decent change, not much to say. Heartseeker. Subsequent hits from the passive on the same target do 75% bonus damage for the next 3 seconds. Okay, note this is on the same target, so for AoE stuff, this doesn't really matter. For everything else, it kind of does. I think 3 seconds is harsh, considering how Heartseeker is used. At the same time, Heartseeker has been relatively overwhelming, so I can see why it's being done. And 75% damage is not that bad. It's still an okay amount. It's still reasonable. So we'll see how it plays out after this. I'm just hoping to see some variety in assassin builds in general. Mantle of Discord now has 0.4 seconds cast time before the stun hits. CC immunity still applies instantly on trigger. The goal here is that you can juke or pre-beats the Mantle of Discord stun by being able to see it before it happens, instead of having it happen instantly at the point where the enemy gets to that level of health. But the CC immunity still comes instantly, so yeah, I think it's an interesting mechanics change. I didn't see Mantle of Discord as super overwhelming, but apparently in the pro scene it's been very dominant. Ring of Hecate. Decreased cost from 2,600 to 2,500. Now gains passive stacks from any target. I think this is big because that means you're not reliant on hitting guards for the lifesteal increase. So I think this is gonna make this item a lot more appealing for mage ADCs than it was before. And it's gonna be interesting if there's room to fit it into builds, because that's the problem, because they already need so many other items. But yeah, it could be cool. Ares, No Escape, decreased self-slow from 50 to 30%. That one, I think, is very good, very interesting. He always felt a bit like a sitting duck during the channeling of his ultimate. Now he can move around a little bit better doing that, and he can also pull enemies closer towards his own team. Discordia, a Golden Apple of Discord, increased projectile speed from 80 to 120. Increased range from 150 to 275. So not anything massive to her damage numbers or anything, but the travel speed making it easier to confirm the Apple of Discord, which was always a relatively slow projectile, especially for an ultimate. So yeah, some people apparently think that the ultimate is actually the weakest part of her kit, as the warm-up is high and the travel time is slow. So that's going to change. I think it's a good change. Horus, very interesting. He's fallen off pretty hard apparently, and statistically, and he is getting multiple buffs. Fracture, decreased cooldown from 16 seconds to 16 down to 14 seconds. Very interesting, because in my opinion that means considering leveling Fracture in an early stage becomes a lot more appealing, as long as you're not super reliant on the clear. And it makes him more of a lane bully that way if you can manage to do that, which I think is cool. And along with that, To the Skies increased from 35 to 135%, in terms of movement speed while in the air. So the flight speed is greatly increased. Horus stated that this number is not as high as it may seem because diminishing returns and everything are applied to that. So it actually, they said it's like a basic attack range further that you can get like 75 units-ish. I think that is still a lot considering how impactful this ultimate can be and how much more chase potential it can offer this way than it currently can. So I think this is a very cool change. I'm very looking forward to seeing how Horus does after these changes. So I'm just happy with this one because I really enjoy Horus. Kuzenbo. This is the ultimate Kuzenbo buff. So first of all, the passive. Water Ball has its duration increased from 10 seconds to 30 seconds. So really the best way to get it off Kuzenbo now is to CC him. Otherwise it will stay on him for a very long time. And that's just the smallest part of this. Well, or like the smallest part, but the least noticeable part, because the other ones are more directly affecting his mechanics, and this one is something, yeah, you only feel when you don't die, basically. But the next one, the Nene Kappa. Kuzenbo can now spawn multiple Nenes. So if you're using the 1 and then the 2 in combination, you can use another 1. Then you will have multiple Nene Kappas now, which can be really annoying. And if you focus heavily on CDR, then you can do a lot with this, I think. So this is going to be really, really exciting in my opinion. And then, last but not least, Sumo Slam also has the turn radius adjusted to allow for more control over turns, which is also something that was always a bit of a pet peeve of mine with Kuzenbo specifically, that his movement was so sluggish during Sumo Slam. So, very good changes for Kuzenbo here. Very excited to see him. The goal is here to bring him onto support, which I'm hoping will work out, because I could also see him going more into solo with this. But yeah, either way, I like it. Mulan was not doing as well as people thought she was. Some people thought she was. She actually is getting some buffs. One of them is Spear Thrust. Increased the speed of the rollout hit area of this ability. They didn't explain that on the patch notes at all. I'm not sure if this just means the second hit is no. I don't know. I have no idea what the rollout hit area, the speed of the rollout hit area is supposed to mean. Well, somebody explain it to me. And the other one is Divine Mastery. While firing this ability, Mulan's protections are increased by 30%. So you will have protection increase specifically, by the way. So if you have more protection, this is more noticeable in terms of the value that you get as an increase. So while you're self-rooted, you will take a little less damage, and that is what a lot of people were complaining about. So yeah, she's not as punishable in the ultimate anymore, and I think it may be needed. Then we have Rah Solar Blessing. This ability now provides 10 to 30 physical power and 20 to 40 magical power to allied gods who are standing in the area. Also an interesting change. That's a cool change. That way you can use it to like help your allies in a team fight a little bit more, gives them some extra damage or on structures or objectives. But also you can drop the Solar Blessing on yourself before you use a snipe on the enemy and just get a little bit of extra magical power and hope it's enough. So either way, it's pretty cool. Scylla fixed an issue where Crush would not apply protection reduction to slow immune targets, only picks the last rank. And Scylla can now refire this ability even while under the effects of crowd control or while dead. And that last part is really bothersome to me. The other one I'm okay with. Actually, I'm a bit surprised here because it should say... Part of this is bonus balance. The guard changes, I think, are all bonus balance. The item changes are not, as far as I recall. Yeah, I'm not sure. And the Persephone changes are not listed on here, while they should be. There are various changes to Persephone Nerf, specifically to the ultimate movement speed. I'm actually going to have a look real quick while we're still here to see if the bonus balance is listed separately. Oh, it is. Okay, that's new. So we can look into that as well because that's coming out today too. with the other skins, right? I was wondering. So, Murder of Crows Sobek, the Gold Criminals, Knights of the Storm Susano, and Pharaoh's Curse Bracken. Those are all coming out first. So bonus balance now posted separately, and there's more changes here. We have a nerf to Camazots, decreased physical power buff from 20 to 40 to 10 to 30. It's a little bit less bonus power. Apparently, Camazots has been overperforming, especially in solo. And yeah, this is specifically dedicated to solo. The change should make a more reasonable matchup in solo while keeping a Vile as a jungler, because yeah, for a jungler it's not that noticeable anyways. In most situations, of course. And because you don't shoot on enemies all the time like you do in solo, just to explain that. Kukulkan gets nerfs, also very relevant nerfs. Slipstream increased cooldown from 15 to 11 seconds to 15 seconds at all ranks. Huge difference here. 4 seconds extra on your escape. And decreased slow immunity from 1 second to 0.6 seconds. Also something that I think will be noticeable. But I'm not quite sure how you'd see that with only the slow immunity being removed. So I guess it's just for sloths that are already applied. And Persephone here, that's what I was looking for. Grasp of Death, decreased projectile speed from 150 to 120. So this is then the same speed as Discordia now, I think. I think that's also 120. And that's because she was generally overperforming. She also had a few nerfs already that were announced last second, basically. So if you're not fully up to date on the last patch yet, she had some nerfs there too. And Yemoja gets the nerfs here. Bouncing Bubble decreased magical power scaling on the bubble damage from 40 to 30%. Adjusted slow duration on Bubble from 1.2 to 2 seconds to 1.4 seconds at all ranks. Moonstrike decreased magical power scaling on Moonstrike inner damage from 45 to 40%. And Mending Waters decreased magical power scaling on Mending Water heal from 20 to 15%. And decreased magical power scaling on Mending Waters shield from 20 to 15%. So all around nerfs, especially to her damage, to her CC, and to her heal / shield, really hitting her on various corners there. I think that's understandable, though Yemoja has been a source of frustration in general, and especially Bruiser Yemoja has been very annoying, or like slightly Bruiser Yemoja, and these changes will reduce the frustration there. So she should be a bit more bearable overall. So these ones are the ones that are all in the bonus balance. I was wrong. The other ones, the other guard chains are actually coming out with the next patch, which is then, I think it was the 24th or 21st or something. So that's it. Bunch of changes all around. Lots going on. But yeah, I'm very excited. Looking forward to it. And we will see more about it when we'll see it on the PTS. With that, thank you guys very much for watching. This is probably going to be the last video for today, so I hope to see you for the next one tomorrow. ZiSotto, out.